Hello, welcome. You guys, I'm solo tonight, so I want as many questions as you can give me, as much interaction as you can give me, because I might feel a little bit alone tonight. I've not been solo for a presentation in a very long time, you guys. So I got my notes. I want to be on point tonight, make sure that I get all this info out to you. Tonight is a very important show because I'm going to walk you through kind of how we got here. Where is here? Well, we know there's pornography books in all the schools. We know in Wake, actually, parents are really kicking ass here in Wake, coming out, showing out strong, and making sure that their voices are heard loud at school board meetings, sheriff offices, etc. But this is all a part of something called porn literacy. I know it sounds incredibly insane, but I'll explain that. So here we are. You know, we've been talking about social emotional learning now for, well, since March. This has been quite a while. And we're kind of like, how do we get here, right? We've also been talking about not only Panorama surveys, but just some very crazy surveys in general that have a psychiatric feel to them. And that's for a very good reason. The excuse that we're given is, wow, since the pandemic, you know, kids are really traumatized from not being in school, etc. Thank you, Al. Kids are, you know, really traumatized. That's true, actually. Very true. But the treatment doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think we've covered that. So actually, we're going to go back in time to 2017. And I'm going to tell you what laid down the precursors to get where we are with SEL, surveys, etc. And so I'm going to share my screen with you guys here. And wow, okay, I have no slides. Okay. You know what? I don't want to jinx it. So I'm just going to share them this way. All right. So let's talk about way back when in 2017. So what we have here is, I'm going to try to zoom here. Let's see if we can do this. Let's see. What we have here is back in 2017. You do remember the Marjorie Douglas shooting, massive shooting. I mean, it really just left an indelible mark on everyone. And so the General Assembly at that time came to the DPI and said, hey, we're going to need to have a committee of, certain people picked from the DPI and other places, a committee made up of people that understand mental health, and that can kind of lay out a plan for the legislation to what are we going to do here, right? Like a work group. So that work group was put together in 2017. Back then we had a guy named Mark Johnson, who was the superintendent, and he chose quite a few people. And I'm going to show you exactly what this plan was, because it undergirds the school mental health plan that we have right now in our schools. And so this is a House Bill 155. I'm not going to get into the weeds, but it ordered the superintendent to really put together the group to encourage, and I think we can all agree with this, student mental health. Nothing wrong with that, right? The superintendent was to choose from people in the DPI that had mental health experience. Totally makes sense. But I'm going to show you the features of the plan because this is really, really critical. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit more. Okay, let's see. All right, here we go. So here are the recommendations that came out of that work group. Okay, so this is the recommendation is, look, we meaning the schools, the public school from the state down, right? We need to have a continuum of care. And that means if we've got students that are struggling and don't have access to mental health services, need to have something for them. That is awesome. Great. We want to prevent teen suicide. It's like the #2 cause of death, I believe, right now in the United States for teens. We want to prevent all these things. But there's some certain features I want to talk to you about. So really this multi-tiered support system, you hear us talk about it often, MTSS. It's actually social emotional learning. That is something that the state school board added into it because this particular plan, which became law, this said, hey, you've got to have mental health trainings for the teachers. We don't have a problem with that. Mental health teaching for the students. This is where we're on a runaway train here. universal screening for psychiatric disorders. So this whole continuum of service, it relies on, it needs surveys. Panorama, other surveys I'm going to show you tonight. Diagnosing and treating children. Now we're way off the farm here with this. And so now every PSU, every school, this is true, needs to universally screen every freaking student for social and emotional problems, which are, you know, things that you can give medication for, right? And they're to diagnose and treat as well. The bottom here, this bottom recommendation really, really pisses me off, I'll be honest with you. It is recommended that the General Assembly legislate immunity protection of staff in schools. I'm going to talk to you about what this means, but it basically means that, hey, we can diagnose, treat, screen your children, all that. And parents, if there's a civil rights violation, can't do a damn thing about it. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. That's not going to work. So next slide here, continuing on with the plan here. And this is the big thing here. So this top one, number 7, this brought Department of Health and Human Services into the DPI. They merged right here. This was the beginning. By the way, this final report was released in 2018. So this has nothing to do with the pandemic. Get that. Nothing to do with the pandemic. So the DHHS merged with the DPI pretty much, or began its merge right there. So this top one says, we're going to put psychiatric clinics and telehealth clinics in all the schools. Here's the problem, you guys. In California, the minimum age of consent there is 12. I don't like that. You can be 12 years old. You can get psychiatric treatment without parental consent. North Carolina, that age is 0. That means, yes, absolutely, for mental health treatment, a first grader can accept treatment from a physician without telling their parent. That is a very big problem here. This number 7, we've got to have psychiatric clinics and telehealth available in every school. Don't like that at all. This last one, the working group recommends the General Assembly continue to work towards the goal, check this out, of increasing school support personnel, including school nurses. Got no problem with that. School counselors, fine. Psychologists and mental health. Okay, you're talking about, let's remember this. This is a team of government shrinks here. So I want to impress this upon you. I'm going to stop sharing this right here. When the government can do something for you, it can do something to you, right? So mental health treatment and screenings, etc., that is not a problem when it's in the confine of your private physician. Medicaid, whatever you have, whatever coverage, it's fine when it's in the confine. This is the government, make no mistake about it, going into your living room, into your bedroom, through your children. We've talked about it, and I'm going to show you that. It's insane. So this is a government army of people, of clinicians that can and are ordered to diagnose and now treat children for social and emotional problems. Again, absolutely universal screening. Wendy, yes, you can absolutely get a copy of that. I didn't work this hard on this slide presentation to not share my love. You know me, Wendy. Okay, so let's move on. So anyway, so we have this plan, and this plan, the General Assembly passes this in June of 2020. In fact, June of 2020, as we've discussed, watershed month, a lot of things, actually fundamentally, everything changed for our school system then. All right, so you're thinking social emotional learning sounds cool. Sloan, I've never listened to you. Sounds cool. I could use some myself. What is it? So glad you asked. Here is Moore County. This is a kindergarten social emotional learning class. Remember, I told you, it is a black box, okay? This social emotional learning black box, it goes in all 12 academic standards in every single class. Math, science, basket weaving, history, every single class, and they can do crap like this. This is telling kindergartners, hey, if you can be a woman, you can be a man, you can be this is crazy. Attracted to men, attracted to women. I don't know why kindergartners are talking about that, but again, you've got some crazy ass teachers. We know that. This is being pushed from the top down. Do not believe the lies. The state mandates this state health plan in every PSU, every one of them. All right. This is social emotional learning. That's one. Surveys. Surveys aren't just the Panorama one, you guys. This one, I'm going to have to read it to you. This is one out of Orange County. This is a middle school. And by the way, we've got literally, if you remember the old phone books, remember back in the day they had phone books. We have a phone book full of these from every district. And this is one of the more tame ones. This is asking children, by the way, this exercise you're looking at is to be discussed in class. Can you imagine being 13, having a male teacher and having males in class and answering, let me tell you about my friends. My best friend's name is, my best friend thinks I am, something my friend does or says that worries me. So you want to talk about ratting people out? This is insane, you guys. Something my friends do that inspires me. Okay, fine. Here's where it starts to get in bad territory. My mom's, my caregiver, her name is, and today I would describe my relationship with her as, I remember back in the day, being 13 and not liking my mom sometimes. I mean, this is a snapshot, right? I mean, no one will tell us where this goes. No one will tell us how this is being used. No one will tell us if this leads to medication. This is social emotional learning. Again, it is a part of every single standard in North Carolina now from the top down. This one, Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, grades 6 through 12. And by the way, these are pretty much all of them. This is going to come into play in a second, y'all. How do you describe your gender? Do you identify as transgender? What describes your orientation? Do you notice they're asking the same question 3 times in different ways? And you may notice that there's only 2 answers on the top. You can be male or female. Only 1 answer here at 33 and only 1 at 34. The rest of them, what the schools are doing is setting these students aside and treating them very privately so their parents don't know what the hell is going on. And again, puberty blockers can be prescribed without parental consent, period. It's the law. Is it ethical? No. Is it being done? I'm not saying that. Here's another thing. This is a Panorama survey that you're looking at. You guys have heard about Panorama surveys, you know, bad news bears here. But this is a standard one that goes out, okay? This is asking, if you've ever been to the doctor's office, you may have seen these. These will be given, it's a 5-point Likert scale. And what that means is in psychology and social science research and in psychiatry, it's a 5-point scale as a measuring instrument to determine, you know, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you have OCD, if you have ADHD. This is what you're looking at. In the past week, how often did you feel excited, happy, loved, hopeful, etc.? Now, these surveys are being done around 3 times a year. This is a drag net. This is universal screening. I don't, and you don't have a problem with kids who are exhibiting outside behavior for them to be flagged. Fine. This is examining the contents of your mind. It is wrong. Okay. So I'll stop right here and tell you that, and I just want to really hammer this in. This is examining the contents of your mind. Is this going along the legislative intent of session law 2020, which is the law, the codified version of what you saw? Mostly not. The social emotional learning in every class, that is not following the legislative intent at all. How often does the state school board follow legislative intent, or the DPI for that matter? Almost never. And that's why the DPI needs to be taken down to 25 employees. As I've said, as I'll continue to say, it is bloated. It's a waste of money. And it is, I'll tell you how corrupt it is in just a few seconds. So we're looking at a system from, you know, having a kid act out and get treatment to, I'm going to examine everyone's mind. And oh, by the way, I don't know if I totally trust the school system. I mean, could they fake a test? Could they lose a test? Could they mix them up? Could they put something on your academic record in perpetuity and there's no due process for getting it off of there? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now that schools are in the business of contracting with something called MCOs, that is a managed care organization. Now that they're contracting with them in telehealth, maybe if you have wrong think, you might get some medication. Let me see. Al, the Michigan school shooter last week was in the principal's office with his parents. You know, Al, something, and I do want to point this out. According to the U.S. Preventative Task Force, surveys do not prevent suicide. So I wish I could say that they did, because I think all of us would do anything to stop suicide. Surveys are not the way to do that. And the questions I just showed you, that ain't no damn suicide prevention survey, right? It's gathering information. So let's go back. Let's go back in time, 2018. Okay. So I already told you, Superintendent Mark Johnson was in office. Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest was also in office at that time. Okay. So let's talk about the players. Let's look at the makeup of this work group. And again, the intention of this work group, the intention was pretty good, right? We've got to, with General Assembly, we got to prevent school shooting, suicide. Got it. All right. So there's a guy on here I'm going to call your attention to. His name's Stephen Walker. At the time, he's General Counsel and Policy Director for Dan Forest. So let me explain. The role of the Lieutenant Governor in North Carolina, he or she serves as a nexus between education and economic development in the state. Okay. So he serves on the State Board of Education. He has a vote, right? Okay. So he's basically the education czar. All right. He's a legislator and an executive. I say he, we're talking about Dan Forest then and Mark Robinson now. And so Stephen Walker right here, who I've flagged, he is serving as a general counsel at the time. So you can think of this guy as a czar of compliance and as a chief ethics officer. Okay. All right. So he's on here. So I need to give you an org chart now. Okay. This is how it works. This is 2018. We're back in time. So we've got Dan Forest top here. To your left, you're going to see Stephen Walker. Okay. General Counsel, Policy Director. Over here on the right, you're going to see a guy, Jamie Falkenberry. Now he's Director of Operations in the Dan Forest administration. And as an education policy advisor, he would do things, and this is important, research and analyze policies in education and communicate it to really all the legislators. I mean, he's the guy, right? He's responsible for all the operations, et cetera. So these are the players. All right. So during this time where this very important work product came from, okay, Stephen Walker here on the left was sitting in these meetings. All right. But he didn't tell anyone that Jamie Falkenberry's wife was a lobbyist for a company. Well, she's an education lobbyist, but she's a lobbyist for a company called Takeda and Shire. This is a pharmaceutical company, the #1 manufacturer for Adderall, Vyvanse, Daytrana, and Intuitive. So all the ADHD drugs. She is the lobbyist. Okay. So doesn't say anything. This is the chief ethics officer. So you have to imagine two things. Number one, she is the lobbyist for Takeda. Number two, she's also the lobbyist for East Point. East Point is one of those MCOs, the psychiatric clinics that go into the things. She's also a lobbyist for them. So by passing this bill eventually in 2020, Jamie Falkenberry, his family just got paid. So this is a guy who's married to a lobbyist, which is fine, but there's no full disclosure. I mean, think about what this means. If you've got a universal screening for 1.5 million children and you're doing it 3 times a year, that is filling a psychiatrist waiting room to the brim that you could never fill. It's shooting fish in a barrel. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what's going on here. Unbelievable. Also, Takeda Shire has a product called Lupron Depot. It is the #1 puberty blocker. That means if a child checks, hey, I'm not happy with my gender, and gets diagnosed with gender dysphoria in school, Lupron Depot is a frontline treatment for gender dysphoria. I'm going to show you here. Okay, so this is from the actual, I believe it's the package insert. Guys, I promise next time I'm going to figure out how to work the slide thing. I apologize. I got to get on my tech game. And so what you do with this is horrendous, but for a pediatric patient, I think you give them once monthly shots intramuscular in the thigh. Those are very profitable. It's about $735 a month. This is a repeat business. $735 a month. I'm not sure if Medicaid pays for it or not, but I do know this. Where's the best place to get patients for Decatur Shire? Oh, and get this. Jamie Falconberry's wife, she was only Takeda's lobbyist for 2017, 2018. These are the years that this plan was being formed. And I wonder if Jamie Falconberry contributed any research for this plan. But I know one thing, Stephen Walker sure as hell knew. He was sitting in there and he knew damn well that his underling, actually, Stephen Walker was Jamie Falconberry's boss. He knew that Jamie Falconberry was married to an education and a health and human service lobbyist. Remember, the DPI and the DHHS, they started merging right then. And his wife is positioned on both ends to make tons of cash. Where is Jamie Falconberry now? He is the director of government affairs. He is the lobbyist inside for Catherine Truitt and our DPI. He gets paid $125,000 a year, government money, our money, plus whatever his wife is making. Still, with other clients. She is not the lobbyist for Takeda now. I want to be very clear about that. My records show, and I've been told that relationship ended in 2018, but by then the model legislation had been written and you know the rest. So where is this relationship now? So Stephen Walker is currently a GOP candidate for Superior Court judge in Johnson County. Jamie is DPI employee making $125K a year. He's still married to an education and a medical lobbyist. So they're still making serious bank. So as you know, we filed an ethics complaint against Jamie Falconberry, I think maybe 5 or 6 months ago. And we didn't hear anything till today, but apparently we learned today that the lawyer who defended Jamie for not what I thought was not disclosing properly on his SEI forms, his economic interest, the lawyer is none other than Stephen Walker. This is what I'm telling you is probably, 1/4 of the story. There's so much more, but here's my point to you tonight. We have a serious corruption problem at the DPI, a very serious problem. These are government officials. Jamie Falconberry has not been clear about his financial interests. Now we have Stephen Walker, who wants people's votes. He wants to be on the Superior Court in Johnson County. And he sat in these meetings. And he told me that he did not disclose in those meetings that Jamie Falconberry, he didn't disclose that he would make a substantial amount of money. And Stephen Walker told me today that, Jamie Falconberry didn't have to register at the SEI. Somebody pointed out to me today that that's kind of like when the Attorney General Garland was on the stand. And he said, I didn't have to report that my son-in-law, was a co-founder of Panorama. I don't give a damn. When you're the Department of Justice, when you're the Attorney General, it means something, right? If you stand for law and order and ethics and justice, it means something. So even though you didn't have to disclose this information, why would you sit in meetings that gave a significant windfall to someone? It's unbelievable. So I will tell you this. I'm going to tell. And openly, yeah, I read that. So I'll tell you this. We need. It's primary season, right? I've already talked to people on both sides who think these surveys are completely inappropriate. And as I've mentioned before, these surveys are not following the spirit of that mental health bill I showed you. They're not. We got to rein that in. So you need to ask every candidate, are you going to make it so that there needs to be, it's mandatory, a signature from a parent before a survey is given. Every single time. I don't care if it's 25 times. I don't care if it's in a class or not. Number one. Number two, are you going to eliminate the clause in the school mental health bill that says there is qualified immunity for everybody in this program? People can misdiagnose your child. People can give your child drugs without you knowing. People can keep things from you. People can groom your child to be transsexual. It's happening all the time. Excuse me, not transsexual. There's no such thing. There are two genders, right? There are two genders. But if you get a child that's gender confused, big problems. We have 2 chapters in California. As I said, 12-year-olds are right now being prescribed puberty blockers without their parents knowing it, and they're killing themselves because the information is being withheld from their parents. This is going to happen here. It's probably happening. Now in California, they have a hard time staffing these clinics, right? They set up all this infrastructure. They have all the money there. And so they end up bringing Planned Parenthood in, who runs the clinics. And if you think it can happen here, I'm telling you, we are California. We are worse in California because we're doing this stuff from K through 12. We are worse in California because our age of consent is zero what they can do to these children. So I also want you to make sure that you tell your favorite candidate before they get your vote. Ask them, what are they going to do to see to it that Jamie Falkenberry is fired? What will they do to hold him accountable? We cannot have lobbyists and their family who are lobbying for education and this mental health stuff. We cannot have them in the DPI. We cannot. This is grift like you cannot believe it. And I want to tell you something. Jamie Falkenberry is mulling over suing me as a result of me talking to you about this stuff. How do I know? I know. I've got it in writing. So he's considered suing me. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to keep telling you this. I have been through and will continue to go through willingly hell because I exposed this. All of us have been, and we continue to expose this. So I want you to understand that the legal threat that I'm under is great. I will not stop talking about this. It is not right to be a pariah on our children and make money about it and sit here and say, oh, I want to be a judge. I want to decide who goes to jail, etc. In my opinion, people who do this and who grift off of our children, they deserve to be in jail. This is a horrible thing. So I want you to make sure that you ask your favorite candidate, what are you going to do to make sure Jamie Falkenberry is fired? I'm going to be traveling all over the state for months, actually. We're going to be very, very busy. I'm going to tell everybody about this. I'm going to make sure they know, and I'm going to put them on the grill and say, what are you going to do? Also, what are you going to do to make sure that we get the Department of Health and Human Services the hell out of our schools? They don't belong in our schools. What's going on with medical privacy? This is insane. What can Mark Robinson do? I'll tell you what. I thank God for Mark Robinson. Of course, I don't, endorse any candidate with Education First Alliance. It's his policies I like. It's his outspokenness that I like. What can he do? I'm not sure. I mean, I think his speaking out is wonderful. He knows the situation in depth, what I'm telling you about. Wendy, can parents call the school and say they don't? Wendy, I'm going to tell you something. Many parents are doing that. We're hearing from parents in Hendersonville, in Buncombe, in Wake, in Mecklenburg, in Chatham that they have actually sent, in some cases, emails and said, I don't want my children participating in any survey, period, full stop. Child ends up being, I won't say forced, but pressured to take the survey. It's happening everywhere. So it's got to be, and Wendy, I'll tell you why. Right now, the state relies on a system that's a passive opt-in. It means if I don't hear from the parent, I'm going to assume that's a yes. I'm going to give it to them. Now, you might say, and the schools do, that, hey, I've got a 12-year-old. My kid knows better. What we're seeing is that you're sitting in a class. Here comes the surveys, right? And everybody's taking the survey, and there's no place for you to go. You're just kind of and you're like, okay, I'll take it. I mean, you can see that, right? So that's what. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, because I will not shut up. I will not shut up. You do whatever. I'm going to tell you guys a funny story in a second, but I will not I won't shut up. Let me tell you the funny story because I'm going to forget it. So I was upstairs working last night, and I'm hearing these extended sirens, all this stuff. And all of a sudden, my kids come upstairs. They're like, Mom, the cops are here. And I'm like, what? And I went downstairs. There were 10 cops in front of the house. And I'm like, okay, finally, it's going to be me that's going to be arrested for doing the school board stuff, right? Well, it wasn't. It was the cops who were doing Christmas caroling last night and who had Santa in tow. But I thought it was funny. So, Facebook user, you got my back. Okay. Thank you very much. I hope you do. So, many surveys are posted in Google Classroom. Bridget, great. So go look for that. I'm telling you right now, in Orange County, they are actually, you guys, coming in and rewarding kids who haven't taken the survey yet. They're saying, hey, how about a reward for you? And that's the kind of coercion. And Orange County in particular is not showing parents one of the surveys coming up. Again, this will potentially go on your kids' records. This is, guys, it is the government. So let's rephrase it. The government can do something for you. Unicorns, flowers, great, mental health. They can do something to you. So the government shrinks are coming in to examine the content of children's minds. Not good. How can I find out if they took the survey against my wishes? Heather, you're going to have to sit down, little Jill or Johnny. And really, it kind of starts there. So if your kids are, I would say, third grade, kids are taught in our homes, obviously, to respect the teacher. And if the teacher is saying, hey, do this, Jill or Johnny, kids want to comply, right? So you're going to almost have to go against your nature and tell them that, no, it's not okay. And that you have to set your boundaries. So I would recommend having that conversation with kids, and then staying in touch with your teacher. Teachers are not necessarily the enemy. In fact, many of them are not. And I'll tell you that we have a lot of teachers in our coalition, and they'll give the kid an iPad or what have you. And they have no idea that survey's on there. And teachers are being duped also. So Heather, are you telling me that there has been 3 surveys in your school so far? It's a dragnet. They are looking for people to treat. I'm telling you. Adderall, obviously, and Ritalin and these attention deficit disorders, you can absolutely be misdiagnosed. I mean, it happens all the time. An enormous drug of abuse. I mean, number 1, obviously, are the the pain pills. Number 2 is Adderall. Yeah. So, okay, Heather, you've got 3 kids. Okay. Yeah. I mean, keep good communication going. There are several school districts that are very, their attitude is, hey, these are our kids. And this is going to be a disaster. Also, Orange County isn't alone by any means. I think it's Buncombe as well. And I'm pretty sure Mecklenburg. They have a policy where if a child decides to change their gender, they instruct teachers not to tell the parents. So you've got this SEL, this multi-tiered system I showed you before. It's a grooming mechanism. Okay. So kids are absolutely being groomed. Can't have that. Again, not part of the legislative intent, but it's happening. So let's go back to this right here. Am I sharing this with you guys? No, you're not seeing it. Okay. All right, let's see. Yeah. So let's go back to this right here. This up at the top, a continuum of service and supports. This is something called a community school, and it means that a school wants to be the center of families' healthcare. It's a way of getting national healthcare is what it is. So this is kind of what it's become, right? And so this is your universal, all this. And no qualified immunity, essentially. Why do they do that? I'm not sure. I'll tell you what I think, though. If a teacher is acting outside of their scope of practice, and teachers are doing that, and the state is telling them to do that, I don't think there's any way that they can be indemnified. I mean, think about it. If your scope of practice isn't screening for diagnosing and treating mental health, issues, and you're doing it anyway, probably not going to be able to, that's funny, Kim, probably not going to be able to indemnify all these teachers. Slim for superintendent. Yeah, I posted up a little test balloon. So we'll see. But all right. So I appreciate you guys coming on. This is part 1 of 4. And just the top takeaway, we've got Jamie Falkenberry, who was he's been the constant. And he's a problem. From 2018 to right here, conflict of interest big time. Conflict of interest big time. He cannot get rich off the back of our children. Also, he went after us hard. He called, funny, it's funny. He called us liars, grifters, money-hungry frauds. I think we figured out who really fits the bill for all of those things. We also have Stephen Walker. He's running for Superior Court judge in Johnson County, or at least that's the news clipping I read yesterday. You have to ask yourself, is this a person? He's defending Jamie Falkenberry for his ethics things. Is this a person that needs a few questions before I vote for him? By the way, I mean, wouldn't it be interesting to see his stock purchases for the entire time, his entire tenure with Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest? I think it would. I think it would, because if he's a part of, in any way, creating legislation or policies that could be a big gain for certain companies, and he has a head knowledge of that, maybe we need to have a look-see. But I'll tell you, we're in the primary season. You need to ask what your favorite candidate's going to do to get rid of these surveys, get rid of the SEL, get rid of the corruption of the DPI. So, all right. Thank you, guys. I think we're going to be on Sunday night. And I should have part 2 of this, because it's going to be very good. As always, send me your questions. Nancy will be here next time. She's out Christmas caroling tonight without the cop cars, but she'll be here next.